Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation. I'm excited to have you here as we explore the fascinating topic of the beginning of agriculture. This is truly a revolution in human history that changed the way we live forever. Today, we'll look at how humans transitioned from food gathering to food production, a milestone that shaped civilizations. So, let's dive in and discover how this incredible shift unfolded. As human populations started to grow, it became clear that our traditional hunting and gathering methods simply couldn't support everyone anymore. We needed faster, more reliable solutions to keep up with this increasing demand. That's when we made a groundbreaking discovery: plants grow from seeds. This realization was revolutionary because it marked the beginning of agriculture. It wasn't just a small change, it led to profound transformations in how we lived our lives. These advances allowed societies to settle, produce food more efficiently, and ultimately lay the foundation for the civilizations we know today. Let's explore the beginning of the Neolithic era, also known as the New Stone Age. This period follows the Middle Stone Age, or Mesolithic era, and marks a significant shift in human history. The Neolithic era started around 10,000 years ago in Southwest Asia, making it one of the earliest regions where these changes took hold. During this time, people made some remarkable technological advances. They learned to polish stones, which allowed them to create more effective tools like saws and drills. These improved tools helped them perform tasks more efficiently and opened up new possibilities for their daily lives. Another major breakthrough was mastering fire, not just using it, but actually making it themselves. This was a game changer because fire provided better cooking options, which made food safer and more nutritious, and also offered protection from predators. To put this into perspective, about 10,000 years ago, the Neolithic era began in Southwest Asia, and it lasted until roughly 5,000 years ago, when the introduction of metal tools marked the end of this period. This era is so important because it laid the groundwork for many of the advancements that would shape human civilization going forward. So, what exactly was the Neolithic Revolution? Well, it's the major change from people relying on hunting and gathering to actually producing their own food. Historians call this the Neolithic Revolution because it marked a fundamental shift in how humans lived and organized their societies. One key factor that helped make this possible was climate change. After the ice ages, the climate warmed up, which allowed new types of plants to grow in certain areas. This created more reliable sources of food and set the stage for agriculture. As these new plants began to thrive, wild barley and wheat started to spread throughout Southwest Asia. These crops became some of the earliest staples for human populations, providing a steady food supply. This abundance of food encouraged people to settle down near these growing fields. Instead of constantly moving in search of food, they began to depend on these wild plants, which led to the development of permanent settlements. Over time, people learned to plant seeds themselves, rather than just collecting wild crops. This was a crucial step. It meant humans could control and expand their food sources, laying the groundwork for farming as we know it today. All these changes are interconnected and represent a monumental shift in human history, transforming societies from nomadic groups into settled communities with complex cultures. Let's talk about mastering nature through the domestication of plants. Early people learned that they could select and modify plants to better suit their needs. This wasn't just random, it was a deliberate process. They chose to plant seeds from the largest grains or the sweetest fruits, which over time helped improve their crops. This process of selection and breeding led to plants that were more productive and better suited for human use. Now, what exactly is domestication? It's the process of changing plants or animals to make them more useful to us. This development was revolutionary because it allowed humans to produce their own food, fundamentally transforming society. When we understand this, we see how pivotal plant domestication has been in shaping human history and our relationship with nature. All right, let's test our knowledge with some key questions about the growing food revolution. First, what do we call the shift from simply gathering food to actively producing it ourselves? That's known as the Agricultural Revolution, a major turning point in human history. Next, think about the environmental changes that helped trigger this shift. A big one was the climate becoming warmer and more stable, which made farming possible. Now, where did all this first happen? The Neolithic Revolution began in the Fertile Crescent, in Southwest Asia. Moving on, what does domestication mean when we're talking about plants? It's basically the process of selectively cultivating and breeding wild plants to make them more useful and easier to harvest. Finally, can you name 2 wild plants that spread through Southwest Asia and helped lead to agriculture? Wheat and barley are prime examples. They were crucial in developing early farming. Take your time with these questions, think them through, and discuss with your classmates. This helps us better understand how these foundational changes shaped human society. Let's talk about the animal factor, domestication for survival. This was a huge milestone for early people because learning how to use livestock really changed the game. Instead of constantly chasing wild herds, hunters realized they could keep animals nearby, which made their lives much easier. This shift from hunting to farming animals marked a big step forward. For example, farmers started keeping sheep and goats. These animals provided not just food, like milk and meat, but also wool for clothing. Imagine how valuable that was, having a steady supply of materials without needing to hunt constantly. Then there were larger animals like cattle, which served practical purposes beyond food. Farmers used them as working animals, carrying loads, pulling plows, and helping with farm work. This meant that farming became more efficient and less labor-intensive. The impact of domesticating animals was profound. It gave early humans a reliable source of food, including both meat and dairy products. They gained clothing materials from wool and hides. Plus, animals provided labor that supported farming and transportation. Overall, using animals greatly improved their chances of survival and helped communities grow and thrive. Now, let's talk about how life changed with the rise of farming societies. One of the biggest shifts was that survival became much easier and more predictable thanks to the Neolithic Revolution and domestication. This means early communities could rely on cultivated plants and domesticated animals to meet their needs, reducing the uncertainty of food shortages. With food sources more stable, people could focus on other activities. This led to the specialization of labor. So instead of everyone spending all their time hunting or gathering, some people became skilled in making tools, building homes, or creating crafts. Speaking of crafts, domestication also introduced new materials like fibers for making cloth and hides for clothing. This enabled textile production, which was a major step forward in improving daily life. Another important change was the development of permanent homes. Instead of constantly moving in search of food, communities began to settle in one place, building lasting structures. All these developments, tool-making, crafting textiles, constructing homes, and engaging in religious or ceremonial activities, show how societies became more complex and organized. These advancements laid the foundation for the more advanced civilizations to come. Now, let's talk about the foundation of civilization, permanent settlements. First, even though early humans started growing crops and raising livestock, they still had the desire to stay in one place. This idea of staying put was really important because it allowed them to develop more complex societies. With a reliable food supply, people could organize their own food production, which meant they no longer needed to constantly move in search of resources. As a result, the world's population began to steadily increase because communities could support more people comfortably. Rural communities started to grow into organized settlements, and this led to the building of permanent structures, homes, storage facilities, and more. This shift to permanent settlements was a key factor in the development of social organization. Things like leadership, roles, and cooperation became easier to manage. Population growth also made it possible to support larger communities, which in turn encouraged specialization of roles. People could focus on specific tasks, whether it was farming, crafting, or trading. And as these communities expanded, trade and exchange networks developed, connecting different groups and fostering economic and cultural growth. Overall, permanent settlements laid the groundwork for more advanced societies, shaping the very foundation of civilization we know today. On this slide, we're exploring the beliefs and rituals that have shaped human spirituality throughout history. As communities grew larger, people began gathering together to participate in religious ceremonies. These gatherings helped strengthen social bonds and shared beliefs. One fascinating aspect is the construction of megaliths, huge stones that early societies erected as monuments or special sites for religious purposes. These massive stones served as focal points for communal worship and spiritual practices. Early humans also believed in gods and goddesses linked to the natural elements: air, water, fire, and earth. These deities represented the forces that influenced their environment and daily lives. Animal worship was also common. Some groups honored a thunder god, while others revered bulls and various animals, seeing them as sacred or embodying spiritual spirits. When it comes to forms of worship, we see a few recurring themes. Many worshipped natural elements like air, water, fire, and earth, believing these were divine or sacred forces. Venerating animals and animal spirits was also widespread, reflecting a deep connection with nature. Additionally, prayers and rituals were directed toward ancestors and deceased relatives, emphasizing respect and remembrance. What's especially interesting is that many of these beliefs and practices have persisted into modern societies, showing how enduring these spiritual connections are. So, in essence, religion in early societies was about connecting with the natural world, honoring the divine in all forms, and maintaining a sense of community through shared rituals. Let's test our knowledge with some key questions about societies and beliefs. First, how did the domestication of animals improve early people's chances of survival? Well, domesticating animals provided a steady source of food, such as meat and milk, and also helped with other tasks like carrying loads or guarding. This made survival easier and more reliable. Next, besides food production, what is one major change that occurred in farming societies? One big change was the development of permanent settlements. As people started farming regularly, they stayed in one place, which led to the growth of villages and communities. Now, what are the huge stones used as monuments or religious sites called? These are called megaliths, like Stonehenge. They often had spiritual or ceremonial significance for early peoples. Moving on, can you name the 4 elements that early people associated with gods and goddesses? Typically, they linked earth, water, fire, and air to divine powers. These elements symbolized natural forces they saw as powerful and sacred. Finally, what evidence suggests that the Neolithic Revolution led to specialization of labor in communities? As farming became more efficient, not everyone needed to focus solely on food. Some people started specializing in crafts, tool making, or trading, which helped communities grow and become more complex. Think about how each of these points connects to the development of human civilization. Religion and farming often developed hand in hand, shaping societies and their beliefs. Challenging yourself to see how these elements intertwine gives us a deeper understanding of our past. The legacy of agriculture represents a truly pivotal turning point in human history. It all began with the urgent need to feed a growing population, which drove early humans to discover and develop farming practices. This was the essence of what's known as the Neolithic Revolution, starting in Southwest Asia. It marked a fundamental shift from simply gathering wild plants and hunting animals to actively producing food through domestication. Speaking of domestication, it was a crucial part of this transformation. Humans selectively bred and cultivated key plants like wheat and barley, which became staple crops. At the same time, they domesticated animals such as sheep and cattle, which provided not only food, but also other resources like wool and labor. This combination of plant and animal domestication laid the groundwork for more stable food supplies. And this shift had profound consequences. It led to the development of permanent settlements. people no longer had to move constantly in search of food. As these communities grew, they formed farming societies, which eventually led to the rise of organized religion and complex social structures. Most importantly, agriculture became the foundation of all human civilization. From those earliest planted seeds to today's bustling cities, agriculture has remained central to human survival and progress. It's the thread that connects us through history, shaping every aspect of our development and culture.